Hey guys, it's Whiskey here, and I've got another Path of Titans video, and it is gameplay on Arazoa as usual, and this one is the Tyranno Titan versus the Spinosaurus, and how that matches up. Had a few fights with some Spinos recently, and finally got a couple of good clips I could show. I think the biggest challenge is that most Spino players want to use the water. I mean, as they should, rightfully so. You know, it's a semi-aquatic, so one of the biggest advantages of the Spino is that it can use water. So, totally understand why people do it. But every once in a while, I do get a Spino that does want to fight, and they don't just run to the water. They actually give me a really good fight. In this case, I fought this Spino, and it was a very challenging fight. I was really excited to have a good fight, and that I could tell that they wanted to fight. And then after the fight was over, I realized I chatted with the person, and it's a player that some of you guys may have bumped into, Empirical. He's an extremely good player on this game. He plays a lot of different dinosaurs, and every time I encounter him, it's an extremely challenging fight. He's actually the only player that's ever beat me as a solo Giga when I used to play Rex all the time. So I was glad to see that it was this player. I was not too thrilled with the outcome of the fight. You'll see why, but it was a good fight indeed. And as I said, he always gives me good fights, so it's great to encounter him in game. And there's several players in the game that I enjoy fighting with. They're always very, very good opponent, challenging opponent, and they're always very respectful. There's a lot of players that get super salty when they lose, and they start hurling insults and get passive aggressive and things like that, and I never enjoy those fights. But there's a handful that are very good opponents and very good fighters. And they are always very respectful whether they win or lose, and I try to do the same for them as well. So just wanted to give a shout out to all you guys for being good sports out there, and hopefully we can keep it up. But yeah, this is a tricky fight. The Spino has an advantage. It's got armor. Like he's probably got the triple defense Spino on. He's got the Spino, he's got the defense subspecies, he's got lone survivor, and then he's got the thick Scoots hide. So he's got the triple defense, which makes the Spino a very formidable opponent, even on land. Like I said, it was very admirable of him to fight me on land and not just run to the water or use water in any way at all in this fight. But the Spino's got the knockback tail and the turn radius to its advantage, and it has a bite that does a lot of damage, and it doesn't have much of a cooldown at all on it. So my heavy bite, if he's bleeding, my heavy bite on the Tyranno will do really good damage to it, but I've got a 10-second cooldown. So I've got to be able to get in, get that bite in, and get out while I have my Terrifying Presence buff on, so that I'm taking as little damage as possible in these exchanges. If you don't do that, the Spino will out DPS you and win the fight. Spino's also maneuverable. You can see how they've got a reach on their bite, plus they have better turning, and they can really get some hits in, use that tail to get you just totally, off center, so to speak, to kind of knock you on your heels and then get some hits in. And if they can get the claw in on you too and get some bleed stacked, then you're really in trouble. The Tyranno Titan will do more bleed, so if you can let the bleed go, that's another advantage you have as a Tyranno Titan against a Spino. You really got to let that bleed do some work, and make sure you're really utilizing those heavy bites very carefully, and getting a heavy bite in and then getting out. So I'm trying to get him to run and move around as much as possible to get maximum effectiveness of that bleed. This was a failed attempt at realism there. I was just trying to do a roar, and it picks up a tiger nut because I happen to be standing on a patch of tiger nuts when I did that. That happens from time to time. It's kind of annoying and but funny at the same time. But I enjoy the PvP and the fighting, but I also try to keep it as realistic as possible. And sometimes there's some funny things like that that happen when you're trying to look realistic. So I thought I'd mention that. So I'm in a really good position here. He's bleeding and I'm not bleeding, and so I'm healing while he's bleeding. That's a really good situation to be in. And if I can stall this as long as possible, that's going to give me the best possible advantage in the fight. Now with that is kind of a double-edged sword, because the longer the fight goes on, the higher the probability of a third party happening is. So it's a fine line you have to um, walk on these fights, because you've got to get the fight over as quickly as possible, but you also can't rush the fight. If you rush the fight, your bleed isn't going to be working as well as it should, and the Spino will probably out DPS you. So you got to be very careful. It is a fine balancing act. It's not easy to do, but that's the trick to it, I think. We are in a good spot here in Birchwoods. It's not necessarily a hot spot, but it can be an area where a lot of things do pass through between Grand Plains and Green Hills. And so, of course, there's the DASP. 3 DASP show up and interfere with the fight. So he ends up going and swimming into the water and dying of bleed in the water. And I just ran away because I knew the DASP would turn and come after me, and I was in no condition to fight 3 DASPs. So I ran and hid. And got lucky because there was another dinosaur in the area that came wandering by, and the DASP went off chasing him, and then I ended up seeing him later, and he wasn't dead, and I'm like, what, did you get away from that? And he goes, yeah, I was able to go and hide. So the DASP had 3 targets there, and they didn't get any of them, so we all got pretty lucky there. So I would have liked to have fought that one to the death. I don't know how it would have ended. You could see my health was like 10% at the end of that fight. And he ended up bleeding in the water, so I think I would have won, but I don't know. It could have went either way. If he got some good hits in the end there, I could have died just as easily. So maybe next time we'll have be able to finish the fight. So shout out to Empirical 123. I appreciate the fight, appreciate the challenge, and I appreciate you not running into the water and actually fighting. So that was awesome, and hope to see you again out there. This is another Spino that I think tried to use the water to the best of their ability, but this puddle just is not big enough, and I know there's only a spot like right in the center where it's going to cause me to swim, so I can still be pretty aggressive, and they're not really that safe in there. And it also, when they're swimming like that, it's going to cause them to bleed. So small little puddles not the best thing for a Spino. A river or a big lake or something where they can actually get away and get that bleed off is the best bet, but a little puddle like this isn't really going to do much. Now, as you might know, on Arazoa, the Spinosauruses are allowed to be in groups of 2. So normally, if there's 2 of them walking around, I'm not going to mess around with 2 Spinos. That's just going to be way too much. But 1 I can take on, and then if they're far away from water, like in this case, that's even better. So I can be fairly aggressive and even swim a little bit, and I think I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna be able to succeed this hunt. It's even better if you can catch a Spino that's not the defense Spino on land, because then they have even less resistance to damage, but even the defense ones you can get. But yeah, the Spino versus Tyrannotitan is a very even fight. It's a good fight, and I enjoy having them when I get the opportunity. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please leave me any questions or comments below. What build do you use against the Spinos? Have you gotten a chance to fight a lot of them, and what are your thoughts on the fight? Let me know, and I hope to see you out there in Gondor. Goodbye.